is history, the future mystery. This moment is the gift. Every
second that we're together is a gift. And Miracle Makers, this is a very special show. Very, very special for so many reasons. The Metoo movement has been so close to my heart the last few days. And as it's being Facebooked and tweeted about, I found out some of my closest girlfriends, some of my dearest male friends can use the hashtag #MeToo as well. And so tonight we're going to be talking about Miracle Makers. If this is something that has happened to you, sexual harassment, abuse, intimidation, rape, all of those things that we don't want to think about that are happening to our girls, to our daughters, to anyone. If that has happened to you, this is the show to watch. If you want to help someone who has been through that, the two exquisite guests that we have with us today have lived it, have experienced it, and have the three of us all together will help you make miracles out of what has happened, what has been created in your experience. There are no easy ways to bring out the hardest parts of our story. It's like standing in the dark with a sign. When something has happened to us, we first feel and are experiencing it as a being standing in a dark with a sign that Source knows, what created us knows. If there was someone else involved in the incident, they know it happened. And yet it is our job to bring light to what happened to us, to bring about the resources necessary in order for us to truly have the energy, the life, the love, the abilities. If we have faith, if we believe in Source, if we believe in oneness, then we must believe that what this too is on purpose, serves a purpose. And it's up to us to illuminate within us what the purpose, what the meaning, what it is for us. And years ago, about 10 years ago, a woman named Tarana Burke started the #MeToo, the hashtag #MeToo movement 10 years ago, before Alyssa Milano and all of the stuff that's happening in Hollywood. This brave woman came out and shared what happened to her and decided this was the way to bring healing. And in studio, I have one of my dearest friends. She's come in from the East Coast to come share and talk. And we had the subject of Egypt on mind initially. We were going to talk about our journey to Egypt and the extraordinary. She's gone with us twice to Egypt, and we were going to talk about the extreme miracles that we experienced there and the activation there. And then as we were driving from the airport, she hashtagged #MeToo. And I was just recently in Sedona, Arizona with one of my dearest our other sister friend who actually went to Egypt with us as well. She went last year, and it was no surprise, unfortunately, that she can use the hashtag #MeToo as well. Miracle Makers, this episode will help you help others, help you help yourself, and have you meeting two of the most extraordinary people on the planet. Let's start with Lori Grasing.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah. How sweet of you to say that. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. What a treat.
Thank you.
And we'll both introduce Elizabeth. Yes,
Yay.
Elizabeth England. Woohoo!
Elizabeth, hi.
What wonderful company to keep. People.
It is extraordinary. And the hashtag #MeToo movement has made it really easy for us to see what a club that we belong to, that no one ever really wants to belong to. And so, Elizabeth, I'd love to start with you. How did you get the club card to this? And what has this movement meant for you?
Well, the Me Too movement is like the end of the Whisper Club.
Yes.
For me, I mean, we all know about the Whisper Club. Every woman has experienced that in her life if she's gone into a new environment, and the other ladies will give her the little warning about who to stay away from and what the danger zones are and that kind of thing. But my experience to be able to say Me Too was really before I was old enough to be involved sexually with anyone. So I was taken advantage of, and it profoundly changed my life. And I guess I can identify with so many women who've had that moment of thinking, even though you haven't told anyone, everyone can just look at you and see what's happened to you. They must be able to see right through you. They must know. And the shame that you carry, because it is the Whisper Club, and you're not allowed to, at that time, or even now, people still feel like they're not allowed to speak up. That's why this Me Too movement is so fabulous. People are ready to say enough of this way of being in our world, and let's get past this. Let's respect women and honor them, and let's be able to have a much fuller world and life because of the full participation of the feminine.
Thank you. The full participation of the feminine, and that club that when you talked about the feeling that, everyone must know what happened, that feeling that you have, it's something that so many people can, and there's no words or emotions that can be, it might be denial, it might be fear, it might be, but there's a sense of everyone knows, and a great deal of shame. A great deal of shame. And so, Lori,
of course, we were all raised in the culture, well, you must deserve it.
Or you did something to bring it on yourself.
You did something to bring it on. It only, it doesn't happen to good girls or good boys.
Right.
Yes, and then there's the culture that if it is going on, you're supposed to look the other way.
Yes.
Because, they do that to everyone. Or they really can't help themselves, or all the types of excuses where you're supposed to just look the other way.
Or they intimidate you to the place where you're fearful.
Yes.
And they manipulate you.
And so mine and the ones that I've witnessed and been part of was the intimidation, quite a great deal of. And so, Lori, if you will share your story.
Well, mine's a little different. It wasn't in the workplace. But I was 18 years old. I had just moved to Delaware. I'd graduated from high school. I didn't know the area at all. And I was young, and I wanted to go out and drive around and just check things out. And so I had come to a stop sign, and a car had run into the back of me, kind of pushed me forward a bit. And I pulled over. And the gentleman got out of the car and came to my window, and he had a knife on him. And so he forced his way into my car and had me drive into a park. And there he raped me in my car. And so it was terrifying because, number one, I didn't even know the area. I didn't know where I was, and I didn't know where he was taking me. I didn't know if he was going to kill me or not. But then, and also I was on my menstrual cycle at the time. So he took my tampon out, threw it out, and, had his way. And then he wanted me to drive back to where his car was. And I did that. I fought with him a little bit, trying to pull the knife away. And I actually did get the knife away from him. I got my thumbs cut. in the process. But it was such a hard thing to be 18 years old and to not even have that kind of thing on your radar screen, thinking, oh, somebody just ran into my car, so I have to pull over. I have to, it's my parents' car. I get my insurance, and then to have that happen was really tragic for my family and for me. So they did catch him because I had the knife, and they fingerprinted him. But the sadness really came for me when I found out he had raped 3 girls before me. But he was underage. So I had to go to trial. And, of course, he went to prison. My whole family had to go through the whole ordeal. But my strength came in, I didn't want that to happen to my sisters or my mother. So there wasn't any choice about not dealing with it. And luckily they caught him. So I had the ability to process it because he was caught and punished for it. So in that way, it was a blessing for me. But don't be naive. That was the biggest thing I learned. I had to watch my back. When I went to malls, I wanted to make sure that I was safe, or that I parked under a light, or if you get pulled over, if you have somebody do that, call 911 and make sure the police are there before you get yourself in a situation.
It takes a great deal of bravery. And to have those conversations, this hashtag #MeToo movement allows people to share, this happened and this is what I recommend.
Yeah. I mean, you have to go to the hospital and you have to go through a lot of stuff and tests, and you have to look at somebody in a lineup and pick them up and shake from head to toe when you see them. But it was worth bringing it out into the light and pursuing not having this predator out in the public anymore. And so the thing about what's happening right now for me on the inside is only light will bring out the darkness. We'll put the darkness out. And we need more light about it, but we also need to verbalize what's happening. Don't hide it. Don't run away from it, because if you do, I think it can chew you up eventually down the road on the inside of you.
And it then perpetuates the cycle.
Yeah.
It continues the cycle. And even if we bring our most generous lens to viewing an incident, if we're looking at it from the best possible way, you're helping this person that raped you.
Right.
If you look at it generously, stop a behavior that they may not want to be doing. And it is violence. I remember all through med school, all through the psychological, all through the working world when we were helping, and I too have had the experience myself.
Yes, I know.
Quite extreme. And I thought after I was done with it and had processed it, I didn't think it would happen again. And for it to happen, the second set in adulthood where it happened, where I know beforehand quite often what's going to happen. And for me, that process was to take full responsibility for every area of my life. And to really taking full responsibility means not making something mean you're bad, dirty, wrong if you experienced it, but it means really fully trusting and having faith in something greater than yourself and looking for the power in that faith, in that thing greater than yourself, to help bring it to the next better outcome that you can bring it to. Whatever has happened, if you truly fully understand there's something greater within you that's beating your heart.
Yeah.
And that thing will help you take the next breath and help you connection to source, God, whatever, however you label it, the universe, scientifically, a cascade of chemicals happening, however you're going to label it, whatever, if your heart is still beating, if you're still breathing, take what has happened and bravery. The bravery within you will show up every time you hold something in tension. When you're holding some thought or an action that you're going to take and it stretches you, it's a little bit tense for you, it creates tension. That tension grows you so that you can have bigger and bigger intentions in the future and bigger possibility of braver things that you might have to do. And this is, Elizabeth, I know you have a son and you have such a beautiful heart and you've been through so many things. One of the things that comes up is as we're watching our children and as we're hearing these movements, and I have a 12-year-old daughter, so this is, I could not be, and she is stunning in her heart. She cares for animals, cares for everything that comes along. She's going to find and nurture it somehow in her process. I know that you've got a son, Elizabeth, and we talk about him so much when we're together, and that tenderness and that love that a mother has for her son, and the beauty with which you're helping him become by cutting the cord, by developing. This is something I'd love for you to speak to around, seeing this movement with the hashtag #MeToo, being a mom of a young man who is developing, and even though he's far from you at times, what comes up for you?
Well, what comes up for me is that so many young people, like my son, have a strong sense of fairness, kindness, equality, and belief in the divine right of each person to be treated with respect. And it's creating a whole new paradigm of how people interact and will treat each other beyond sexuality, race, gender, all of these things. And he's really been an example of that to me. And I think that the young people who have been exposed to so much. I mean, he was a kid who in third grade learned so much about sexuality when he went to the basic courses that they put in school. And it completely revolutionized his attitude towards sexuality. And I think these younger people are creating a field where we can get to the truth of these things now, and creating a courage field, where this kind of thing can come out and a movement like Me Too can explode.
Yes, and it should. And it should. Because I think we don't see or know, but of a small fraction, right? These big things that blow up on the television about, this person did that. Bill Cosby, Weinstein.
Yes.
But there's a lot more of it happening all over the country and all different kinds of places. And nobody says anything about it because of all the things that you said earlier: shame, intimidation. It could be your boss. It could be anything. But when you compromise what's right on the inside of you, because I think everybody knows right and wrong, and they also know what might be right and wrong for somebody to assault their body, their person, that you can't run from that. You have to face it and you have to bring it out, because if you don't, it can never go away because it's a hidden, dirty secret. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting when Quentin Tarantino said, I saw what was happening. I knew it, right? And knew personally women that told him the stories, but yet he did nothing, right? So for men, we had a conversation with a gentleman this afternoon about what it meant to him. And he isn't that kind of person, but he said he was ashamed of men. He felt ashamed of what had happened with that. We need more of that. We need more gentlemen, and we need more boys, and we need more of that kind of feeling that's shameful. It's shameful to behave that way.
I think we need to really speak to the women that are out there and say, we all need to stand up together and not say, well, that's just how it is, and that's the status quo, and that's how men are, and
I can't fix it.
There's even I went to the Women's March in the day after the inauguration, and the beauty and the power of the people that were in that march. Lots of women, of course, but lots of men and lots of young people, every age, and really standing up for this has got to change.
Yes.
This paradigm has got to change. And we've got a battle in the media going on right now, because we've got even our president, who's been caught at this type of thing, getting a pass.
And I think this is one of the most important things is, if you are a man that has had this experience, you were at the end, this is your time to, if you were at the giving end, sexual harassment, did something, and to really get and fully understand, people will forgive you. If you're the one that brings it forward and brings and shares, this was something that I did when I was young, when the hormones were raging, or this is, they're in South Africa, they had these amazing trials, and women would stand up and say, a woman would stand up and say, I was raped by 5 men, and 5 men would walk over and say, please forgive us, we're so sorry. And they might not be the same men, but one of those men might stand up and say, I raped a woman, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. The confession part, the sharing part, for people to really fully get this, Miracle Maker, you can make miracles by owning what you might have done in the past when you were younger, and maybe practice it in the mirror, sharing, this was something that I did when I was whatever age, whether you were a bully, whether it was sexual harassment, whether it was actually rape. And the process of changing the world begins with really being able to see, or you being able to see yourself. And if you were a woman or a man that had this experience, and you might have been before the age of understanding it was wrong or right, you might have had sensations that were odd and but guilt producing later when you realized, wow, normal people don't have those experiences. Some of the people that I've counseled were in incest relationships and didn't know as children what that meant or what that was. This Pound Me Too movement is really to bring light to the experience. And it's so much better as someone who's been in a near-death experience, as someone who's been on the other side and really witnessed things that I didn't have language for or words for. So I witnessed the Oscars. And later on, when I attended the Oscars, I understood what had happened in my near-death experience. And at the same time, I was the actress on the stage in my near-death experience. I was in the audience, and I was also a vendor in that space. It was a divine appointment to be at the Oscars. This gives me total faith in these divine appointments, the people that we meet, that Source has got us. When I was in the audience, had I lived my potential, I might have been on the stage at the Oscars. Had I been less than the potential that I was living up to at that moment, I might have been in service to those that were attending at that time. I know with absolute certainty the field being watched. Whatever you have done or whatever you have experienced, if you can bring light to it right now, your potential, what happens for you, where you end up in the stage, the highest potential of your life actually happens for you. And it's such a way to share this story, to say this is a movement to allow you to fully, courageously be seen, whichever end you are in that situation, and to really receive for yourself the peace that your heart, that your body wants and intends. And then, Lori, I'd love for you to share as just anything that comes to mind as we're diving into this conversation.
Well, I do think that our daughters, the young girls coming up, need to know that this exists.
Yes.
But also that there's power in exposing it, because it seems like the exposing it has even brought the men's conversation into it. It's not this club where these shady things just go on, and it's a part of life. So bringing it out in the open is the most important, courageous thing I think a woman can do if she's assaulted or raped. Because if you don't, then it doesn't stop. You know, nothing can stop it until it's exposed. And clearly we see that happening right now across this country.
Yeah.
But it needs to continue to move that way. And women need to be considered equals. They shouldn't be. I mean, I think part of this problem is that we're not valued as equals, and that we're a possession or something to be taken advantage of in that way. So I think growth in that area is important too. But it will take a nation. It will take a lot of the young girls coming up, right?
Yes.
To really stand tall and stand strong, and don't allow it. Don't allow it to be shady or quiet or something you're ashamed of, because we have to put an end to it at a certain point in time. And I don't know how else it can be solved unless it gets exposed.
So, Miracle Maker, even
it's about education.
Yeah. Miracle Makers, even if you're feeling shame, do it anyway. Even if you're feeling fear, do it anyway. No matter what is coming up for you, do it for your sister, do it for your brother, do it for the other, as well as for yourself. That holding tension in your body, fear, going out and sharing what happens to you is so important. It empowered you, Lori.
It did.
It empowered you. And it's so important that a tribe, a trial, people will come around you to help the movement, whether you're in the United States or wherever you are. We've got to begin this process of really opening and bringing light to the things that we don't want to talk about, usually the polite conversation.
Right.
As you're learning to share about this, a tribe will form around you to help you. And Elizabeth, I know you have more to share, and you've such profound wisdom. What comes up for you?
I think that this is a profound opportunity now for education. As Lori said, it's so important for us to tell our daughters, our sisters. And I know that for women in my age group, when I go into a room of 10 people that are women, 7 have had some sort of sexual violence. And so it's really the time for us to stand up and say, I am a divine being. And it doesn't matter what my race or gender or beliefs are. I deserve to be treated with respect at all times, always. And that's what the Women's March movement was really about. And it's doing an excellent job of educating young people in their human rights.
Right. I think the human right part is the most important aspect for you, Miracle Maker. What is your right? Your voice is part of what is your right. Your body is so much part of your right. Feeling safe and feeling respected and appreciated is part of your right. What else would you add to that?
I would say that I have learned in my life to make the assumption that I'm going to be treated that way in every situation that I go into. And creating that energy and that intention gives me, it allows me to be seen and received in an entirely different way. And I know that before I was really educated on this, I did not go into situations with that strength and understanding of my human rights. And so it was easier for me to be manipulated and the advantage to be taken. So that is the beauty of this movement, that people really will discover their human rights and they'll be able to step into their daily lives with that empowerment.
That's so beautiful. And Lori?
It saddens me how much of it is prevalent in society and happening in this world. And for all the young girls out there still to come, I mean, it's something that has to be dealt with, and it has to be exposed in order for it to be dealt with that way. So keeping it quiet and keeping it silent doesn't serve in the long run. Having a shift happen in society. You know, they teach sex ed in class, right? But they don't ever teach anything about relationships or the right way or the wrong way or any. And it seems strange to me that they would just teach the physical part of the function and not anything else about the emotional part of it or its impact on you or anyone else in your family or your life. So I think Elizabeth is right. They should be educating a little bit more, not just about what physical hormonal changes are happening, right? Because they do, and they come on strong, but also about human dignity and acceptance and respect.
There is such a difference.
A no is a no.
A no is a no. There's such a difference between how young girls and young boys are looked at. Girls, right, again, still are taught to be conform, to give, to bend, whereas a boy aggressively taught to go seek out aggressive. A girl, and across the board, she's taught over and over again to be soft and supple and not put her foot down for what she believes in. That's thought of as a strong-willed child versus if that's a girl versus a boy thought to be a leader in that. And the way that we're raising our children become very, very important. And it's up to the parents that are watching this. And if you are a parent or grandparent, really advocating when your child is speaking to really listen and to not interrupt and to comment back and give them positive feedback, especially if they've been on the shy end or they've been out of communication with their peers or with you. When they begin to speak or begin to share whatever they're going through with you, be sure to make comments back to them that show them that you heard exactly what they said, and to say it so that they feel compelled and heard and held, and they will share more with you. And so if you suspect that someone has had a sexual assault or harassment, your job is to make them feel comfortable and relaxed, and not to ask them directly at first unless you've built that rapport with them. Your job is to just listen to what comes through. And as they're sharing, and you've opened the door where they feel deeply heard, deeply understood. This is with someone who's shy or quieter, or after they've been heard, after they feel felt, you then go into a process of possibly saying, there's this Me Too movement. There was this thing that happened to me as well. Is there something like that in your experience? Or have you heard about that happening with girls in school or boys in school? And it's not labeled just to them. They may speak about the perpetrator and say, this is what I've heard about so-and-so. And so as you mirror or share with them, wow, so this is what you've heard about so-and-so, you then encourage this person to share deeper, more of their own experience. So miracle makers, if it's happened to you, you are not alone. Most of the world it's happened to. If you suspect it's happened to a loved one, create an environment which creates safety and allows for them to share. And then let them ask for, what's the next movement? What can I do around this? And as they're sharing, I would come back with, if this happened to me at this time, at this age, these are the steps. This is the first step that I would take. And just start with sharing the first step, not necessarily the whole gamut of what has to happen. Just start with one step in that direction and support them along the way.
Yeah. And if you have to do something that's wrong to try to get something that you want, nothing is worth that price, right? So if someone says to you, oh, you have to do this, or to get somewhere, or to be somebody,
yes,
or to get a favor of some kind, really think hard about that. Because once you compromise your own spirit, you'll never win with that. Whatever you gain will never be good enough. You shouldn't have to perform in order to be able to be someone or have what you want. That's possible without that. It just takes tenacity, and it takes a lot of prayer, and you can do it without having to compromise yourself for something that you really want deeply inside.
So two wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly.
And if this has happened to you, anyone who's out there, just know that it's happened to me too. And that your body and your life and your spirit, those are your divine possessions on this earth. They're your property. They're your authority. They belong to you. You're the one who has the final say. No matter what someone tries to convince you or force upon you, it's your body, it's your decision, and it's your right. And if something has happened to you and you have been violated, it is not your fault. It is violence against you. And you must forgive yourself.
That's the key. And there is a part of you, forgive yourself, and know there's a part of you that's connected to source, connected to the universe, connected to everything sacred that can never be touched.
And last, I'd like to say, Sarah, we all have gained great lessons from the difficult things that we've been through.
Yes.
So we've survived through it, and we have used these experiences to make us rock solid in our lives, become such stronger women and advocates for others because of it. And I wouldn't wish any of this upon anyone, but I do want you to know that there's a way to get through it and to become more powerful and more centered and a strong woman, a strong, solid, proud person.
True.
Strong, solid. I call it strong, independent, I can do it woman.
That's it.
Strong, independent, I can do it woman. And that goes for men as well. I think it's the stigma that goes with men having had this experience is even another layer on top that's really, really difficult. And I really want to say, you get your personal power. Each one of us gets our personal power connected to the sacred part of us that's connected to everything else. The part of you that's real can never be touched. And to really fully understand this is the process of regrowth in your abilities. You can also really be in a space to have your senses know whether you should be in a space or not going forward. You go back to what you sensed or what was showing up for you right before the incident. And it is, or you go back and you visit yourself in the experience and you notice within your body what was alerting you. And I think this is really, really important, is moving forward with your mind's eye, with the vision that we all have. Let's create a world fully where men and women are equals.
Yes.
And for there to be a great conversation for the next few years that allows us all to bring and let all of this come up to the surface. Let it be shared, whatever aspect of sexuality, sensuality, this sexual assault, this violence to men, women, children, anywhere. Let's bring it to the light. Let's hold that vision and that intention. And with that, Elizabeth, what do you see happening if this was brought to the light completely, and everyone that had been the perpetrator has done atonement work, has made things right? What do you see? And anyone that's experienced this has support around them, and those that were part of this at some point have support around them so they don't fall back into it. What kind of world do you see?
Oh, well, I see a world that's, we have conquered violence between people as a way of communication.
That's so beautiful.
And restored it with restored kindness to each other and basic respect to each other. And this incident with Weinstein is a very powerful breakthrough for all of us, because the Hollywood industry has been the place where there's been the most objectification of women in print and film. And there's a tremendous amount of pressure on our young girls and all women to have some sort of an ideal that is acceptable to what the Hollywood ideal is. And to have this breakthrough in the industry with one of the biggest producers of all time to be exposed is really going to change the entire landscape in Hollywood, I think.
And Bill
it's going
Cosby.
to become much more honest, and women will become much more empowered. And it's a wonderful thing that it's happened at this very core and important visual industry. And we know that this has happened in every type of business. I even when I was a young woman, there were times when I was offered opportunities for raises or great jobs, and it came along with an implicit request. So it's not just the Hollywood industry, but now that this is really exposed, we're going to see a big difference. This brings up the little short film that I know you're going to show at the end that was produced by my producing partner, Ken Sheets. And it's part of a film called Discover Me. And it's about this very thing of Sexual Politics in Hollywood. It's all actors who were interviewed, and it's a little 7-minute clip you'll see. And when this film was presented to the industry, to the studios, nobody wanted to touch it.
Sure.
And it's funny, Ken said, I just didn't understand. It's such a fabulous documentary. It is a fabulous documentary, but it touches a topic that they didn't want to talk about 9 years ago.
Right.
And now they're ready.
Now they're ready.
And you'll see some very heartbreaking descriptions of what some of these young actors and actresses have gone through.
What's beautiful is after we show, I think we'll start it and show maybe the first 3 minutes of the video, and then you can go watch this, Miracle Makers, on your own as well. You just have to log in, and Ken Sheets and Elizabeth England have been so gracious to give us a code for Sexual Politics in Hollywood to watch the 7-minute short film. We'll watch maybe about 3 minutes of it here and then take up the conversation again. And so the passcode at home is DM to watch this on your own. But
that would be uppercase DM, capital DM to watch this. Sexual Politics in Hollywood. I don't know if you can see the top of it. I only see in Hollywood on that.
We see the whole thing,
okay.
I believe. So here we go. Sexual Politics in Hollywood, produced by Ken Sheets and Elizabeth England. So there's images of casting notices.
The whole 2 months just flashed before my eyes, just thinking like everything was all for this nasty pervert to get ahead.
2 seconds, and that was Jessalyn Desmond, who is this beautiful actress in Los Angeles. She's a talent so extraordinary. Sexual Politics in Hollywood is such a profound, and I recognize some of the people in the film are friends. They answered an ad, and I have shared in this short video, the short segment, the 7-minute short movie. What they shared is so extraordinary that they went through auditioning. They are talented, and yet it came down to this implicit, you must do this in order to get this part. And when they didn't, they were outright told, you will go nowhere in Hollywood. And that's one of the reasons they have not been discovered yet. Elizabeth, and I think we can show a little bit more of it.
You are going to be confronted with a lot of choices that challenge your integrity. I read the piece, everything is great, and I'm just vibing really, really good, feeling really good about myself. And he's like, I really want to, I've been meaning to ask you this. And I'm like, yeah, what? He's like, well, I could really help you out in your career. And this role could be the role that will make you. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But I need to know, how well do you give head? I was like, I was expecting, do you drive motorcycles or, something that would be related to the movie? And I felt so disgusted, and I was so disheartened, and I just reacted. I just grabbed my stuff and I was like, first of all, I have talent, so I don't have to do that. And second of all, I have talent.
I've hung out with some pretty prestigious yet sleazebag people that are like, hey, you want to have sex with me and I'll give you a career? And at times I find myself thinking, well, gosh, man, women probably actually do this, which kind of ruins it for the rest of us who are actually trying to, make it and, get training and do all this stuff. And then you're competing with the sex.
A director of mine, once again, was interested in me, and so I was not returning the favor, so he fired me. Little did I know, coming from a town in Texas, that's where I lived before, that, you know, this is what I'd encounter coming here. Yeah, there's a lot of sharks in this pool. It's just, you know, and now that I'm more aware, I'm very cautious about what I do or who I work with from this point on.
Fortunately, or unfortunately, I haven't.
You could, you know, walk around naked if you'd like, and I'm like I really felt uncomfortable. I was like, oh my, I really shouldn't be here. And like when I sometimes get nervous or when I feel really uncomfortable, I tend to really like laugh a lot or like overconcentrate. Be like, hey, yeah, really? yeah. So I'm like, oh shit, like how am I gonna get out of this? I'm like, please God, get me out of this. And he's like, oh, I know people, you know, and he started like literally moving over to the couch. I'm like, okay, dude, this is not like, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, well, thank you. I cut him right away. I was like, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You know, you have a beautiful home, but I'll get back to you, and I appreciate you meeting with me. Thank you very much.
And so he put me through an audition in the hotel room, and then he started to make a move and everything, and I let him know, you know, this is not going to happen.
Get off my phone call, and I'm actually at the moment taking a moment to go, wow, look at that view. And he comes up, and I just get the whole, like, rubbing your shoulder thing. I mean, God knows I've done that to plenty of girls in my life, so I know the feeling. I've been the one to do it, like, oh, here, you know, you're cold, let me put my arm around you, you know. now it's being done to me from a guy. I'm going, wait a minute.
I don't see the mentality of an ugly, fat, disgusting, smelly breathed human being that just happens to be a producer thinking they could even kiss me, let alone, God forbid, do anything else.
And then he started adding all of these things at the end of every sentence of, but you know, I mean, you know what you'd probably have to do for something like that, or you know it would come with a price.
I was actually offered a few movie roles where, yeah, I got the role, and I was all happy, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, by the way, we want you to be topless in the scene, or oh, by the way, we want you to, and I was like, you know, you didn't say this when I was auditioning for the role, you know, and I would try to negotiate, and then I just got cut out the film.
And he's like, yeah, but I don't understand you. He's like, I don't know if you're a good girl or you're a bad girl. And I'm like, there's nothing bad about me. And he goes, I can't read you. And I'm like, well, because I'm not a slut?
He offered me a part. He offered to fly me to Toronto it wasn't a big part, it was a principal role, you know, with some lines, but it's a good stepping stone, you know. The only thing was that I would be staying in the hotel room with him. And he's married. And it was right then that everything came together, and all these months I felt like I had wasted. And all of this time in our friendship that I thought was real. I still get kind of emotional because, you know, I'm a loyal person and I'm a sincere person, and when I extend to you my friendship, it's real. So when I realized all this time that all of these little promises were empty and they were all stringing me along, and they would only be they would only have manifested if I would agree to have been romantic with him. So of course I told him no. I could have easily said yes, and you know, I'd be a lot farther than I am now, and the road would have been a lot easier probably. But I just felt like, damn it, I still believe in myself, and I know you still do. It's just your ego will not let yourself help me because I'm not being romantic with you. So I guess the moral to that story is you can never rely on anybody. You know, you really have to do all the work yourself and continue on a continuous basis. You can never put your hopes in anybody, no matter how much you think you trust them. Because in the end, you're the only one who can make it happen.
That is a Buzzbro film directed by Ken Sheets, produced by Elizabeth and Ken Sheets. That was so wonderful. Lori, that's the first time you're seeing it.
It is. It
yeah.
is. And it's exactly what we've been saying all night long. It's so profound. But nothing that you can gain from doing that is worth it. And I'm so glad to see some of them saw it, realized it, and said, no way, not for me, bye. and didn't feed into it because their hopes and their dreams were also on the table at the same time, right?
Yes.
So you have to look at yourself. Why am I here? What am I doing? Know yourself and know that you need to make the right decision for the inside of you, that you have to live with that. And it will stay with you your whole life, right? So I think talent is talent. And,
talent is talent.
You've got to work hard.
And you've got to work hard. And I think the key factor that you're sharing over and over again is know yourself.
Yeah.
Really, really know yourself. And you will be tested, Miracle Maker, over and over and over again. Lori Grasing, thank you for being in studio with us. Thank you. Elizabeth, we've only got a couple minutes left. Anything you want to share?
Just that it's such a delight to be here with you, Sarah. And I know that the work you're doing is to heal. And I appreciate so much all the healing that you're bringing to the planet and to the women, to the Metoo movement.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so, so much. And thank you for sharing the film. And Miracle Makers, that film, the sexual harassment in Hollywood. I'm sorry, sexual politics in Hollywood, sexual politics. The code is DM. Watch it yourself. And Miracle Makers, we love you. There is a whole team of us praying for you, holding and doing the research and science for these shows. We would love for you to follow the conversation on Facebook. You can also follow the conversation on YouTube. All of it at Dr. Sarah Larsen, whether Facebook or YouTube, and on my website. And we would love for you to come on a journey with us to Egypt. Show was to be dedicated to Egypt. And so just a word on what would you say if someone's considering?
Go.
Yes.
Go.
It's
a once in a
it'll
lifetime.
empower your life.
Yes, it will.
It will empower your life. The Great Pyramids, the Nile, everything that's there is so sacred. And the sacred geometry of the place helps you come alive. And so big heart.
And you're such an awesome host and leader for these trips, Sarah.
Amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I always say you bring the magic wand with you, right? You do.
Thank you. I experienced that. I love that. And so Miracle Makers, till next time. Next week is the call-in show. So we're looking forward to you calling in. Bye for now.
Bye.
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 The past is history, the future mystery. This moment is the gift. Every second we're together.
You guys still there?